All right, now we're at a stage where we can do what we call a first polish pass. And we do a first polish pass when we have a fully functioning forward kinematic armature rig. So we're technically ready to animate. We can animate this. However, it's not as easy for certain movement like walking on the ground and so on and so forth, as well as having the quad blade retract and so on and so forth. We can animate that by hand, but it's easier when it's automated. Now, some animators do prefer having the forward kinematic, and some prefers having the extra controls. Now, I say it's best to have both. So if you need any scenario, you can have both. So we need a way to turn them on and off. Now, regardless of that, when you're working with the forward kinematic rig, it also needs to be easy to select and intuitive and easy to pose. Now we do that by locking some of the axis as well as making sure that the bone rolls for the legs and so on and so forth are all set up properly. So if you want to follow along, you can open c_04_robo_rigging_start.blend. It's basically the file from the last lesson, the ending of the last lesson. So you can follow along. All right, so now what the first thing I want to do is to take off the robo from being a child of the armature. So let's simply go to the actual object panel under relation and hit the X. It still will move around with it because it has an armature modifier. All right, so we're going to put the glass on and we're going to lock these so we don't accidentally select them while working. All right. So another thing that I want to do is if you look at the front, you will notice that the legs are not perfectly aligned. So I want to actually fix that. So to fix that, select all the bones. So all those bones. And to the front view, we're making sure that we have the median point selected as well as the global. We're going to press S and then X and then 0. So it's going to scale it to 0. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side here. So scale X 0. Now, if I go to the wireframe view, they're probably not aligned properly anymore. So let's actually quickly align them. I'm just going to quickly zoom in and I need to move them about here. All right, so I'm going to do G and then X, and then I'm going to press Shift so it moves slowly. And I'm going to align this to the line there. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to select that row and I'm going to zoom in. And I need to align that there with that line right there. So G and then X and then Shift. So it moves slowly. And then here we're pretty much dead on. There you go. So now what we want to do also to make sure that these all align properly to one another, since they're going to be the legs, it's very important. What do? We go under armature and then armature roll, and we're going to do a recalculate roll, and it doesn't matter which one we choose. So let's choose the global X. So now their rotation are going to be similar from one another. All right. So that's exactly what we want. When you're creating new bones like we did earlier, it's not necessarily calculating the roll of the bone properly. So when you're creating limbs that needs to be straight and that needs to have the exact same rotational axis on all the bone, it's always a good idea to go ahead and recalculate the rolls because it will save you some headaches down the road. So now we can go ahead and start locking stuff. All right, so to lock stuff, it's very simple. You select, you make sure that you're set to local mode so you know which axis is actually the one that you need to lock or keep unlocked. And then you press N to bring up the item panel here with the transform. And you simply go lock what you don't need. So I'm going to lock the location as well as the scale. And this, it doesn't matter if it's in quaternion or if it's in XYZ or it's only going to open. So we're going to lock everything but X, all right? And then we're going to do the same thing with this one. So we're going to lock everything but X and W in the case it's an actual quaternion. So this one actually should have everything. I've got the wrong bone selected. So if I select this, I only need that rotation. So everything but X, just like that. And then select this one. This one should be the Z axis. So we're going to unlock or lock everything but the Z axis. We're going to do the same thing on this one. So everything but the Z and the W as well, because we need that. Now this is the shaft, so the shaft should only move up, so in its y-axis, all right? Now the rotor itself should be able to move up, and this one we needed to be XYZ earlier because we're going to use the Y spinning motion, but we're going to lock everything else, all right? So now this is a lot easier to just grab, bring up, open these roughly 90 degree just by pressing G or even R. It doesn't matter because they're locked and nothing else but the rotation gets actually influenced. And then from there you can bring that up, bring that down, and then we can animate this spinning. All right. So these are already pretty much optimized. So that's good. So let's optimize that one as well. So that one only need to rotate in the y-axis, but it also need to be XYZ earlier. All right. So because we're going to make it spin. All right. So these ones, I want to change the parent-child relationship to make it easier to actually work with. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. What we're going to do is we're going to parent this one to this one. So Control P, keep offset. And then we're going to parent this one to this one. So Control P, keep offset. And this one to that one, Control P, keep offset. And same thing for all the other ones. Control P, keep offset. Select, Control P, keep offset. Select that one, Control that one, Shift. And there you go. So that's that. And this one, we only need to have the rotation of the X axis. So we're going to lock everything but X. It doesn't need to be, it can stay in quaternion. That's fine because it's not going to spin. All right. And these ones, same thing. They're not going to spin. So we can leave them as is and just lock everything but X. That same thing with that one. Lock everything but X. Just like that. Same thing with this one, everything but X. All right, so it's fairly fast because you can just click and drag and all the locks actually just pop on. So it's fairly fast. It goes a little bit faster with a pen actually. Whenever you're using the tablet, I find this is a great step to do with the pen. All right, so we're done with the iris. I believe this one was already done. There you go. So for the other bones, we basically we need this one to be free as well as this one. So no lock whatsoever. However, for the legs, we only need that part to move up and down. So we're going to lock everything but the Y, and we're going to do the same thing with this. So lock everything but Y, and we're going to do the same thing with that one, everything but Y, as well as this one. So everything but Y. Now this one we need to have rotate in all axis. Now even though some of these will be single axis, you want to leave them at quaternion since we will use IKs. And when we use IKs, it works much better if you do leave quaternion on. So in this case, we only need Z. And in that case, we only need Z as well. So we're going to lock everything but W and Z. All right, so we're going to do the same thing for all of the other ones. So the main top one is a ball joint, so it needs all three axes, but the forearm and the hand are restricted to the Z axis in terms of rotation. All right. So I'm almost done here. There's only these two legs left to do. So we're going to lock these, and then we're going to lock everything but Z in this one, as well as this one. So everything but Z. So you know that the legs are already straight. They're already performing as they should. We've made sure that they're all properly aligned with one another. And now with the locks, it's going to be even faster to pose. And so this one's missing these locks. And there you go. So now we've got the first phase of the polishing already done. We've locked the controls that we don't need. So now we're ready to go to the second phase and start adding a little bit of custom bone shape. So it's a little bit easier to actually read. So let's go here and let's turn off the name and the axis because it's a little bit of annoying. And let's press Shift C to bring the 3D cursor back right there. And if you go to view, here you have the location and rotation of the 3D cursor. So we can bring the 3D cursor a little bit back here. All right, so I'm gonna go here and dock that, and I'm gonna add a new collection, and we're gonna call it CBS for custom bone shapes. It's gonna quickly select an object and then select the CBS folder. I'm gonna go Shift A, and we're going to add a circle. I'm going to tab into edit mode. We're going to do Shift D, rotate X 90, and then Shift D, rotate Z 90. So we've got some sort of sphere. So we're going to use that sphere for the actual root bone here. So I'm going to quickly switch to the material preview. So I'm just going to let it load. Okay, now it's done loading. And we're going to assign this to that. So let's go to the bone here, go to the viewport display, and let's select this. And let's also make it big enough so it goes over everything. All right, so that's perfect for the body. So now let's assign a circle for pretty much everything else. So let's select this, go Shift A, sorry. Select this, Shift A, and then go Mesh, Circle, and tab into edit mode, go rotate X 90 degree, and then G and then Y to move it up its Y axis. So its center point is there. All right, so we're going to assign that for almost everything in here. So we're going to select all these. All right, so I'm going to select all these, and then I'm going to select all these and all that, and then I'm going to select these as well. All right, I'm even going to select that as well as these, and all these actually, and even that. And then we're going to go right here, press Alt, and then click, and then choose Circle 01. So now we have circles everywhere. Now they're way too big for the most part, so we're going to select the bottom ones here. I'm going to try to bring those to a scale that makes sense for these legs. All right, so select them all, press Alt, and then click in here. And then if you hold Shift, it's going to go a little bit slower. So we can bring these in at about, I don't know, 0.15. All right, so this is pretty obvious as to what it does. Yeah, so that should do the trick. And these are about the right size. This one seems to be the rotor. So let's actually make that one a little bit bigger. And this one seems to be the shaft. So we're going to make that one a little bit smaller. And these seems to be the blades. So we're going to make these one a lot smaller. So I'm holding Alt while I'm moving this around. Also, it can't be scaled 0. It doesn't make any sense. So let's enter. So if you hold Alt, click 0.05 maybe. There you go. So now we've got each of these blades. All right, so we've got also one right here that we should scale up a little bit. So this one was the rotor. This one is the shaft, and it's too small, so let's make it bigger. So this is the first one that should come up, and then this one goes up while these actually opens up. All right, and then after that, this one goes back down, or rather, this one goes back down. Perfect. So Alt G. All right, so now we need one for the root as well. So let's select this here, go Shift A, and then add a circle. We're going to go tab and then make sure everything is selected, which it looks like it is. So if you go to edge or even vertices, you'll see better. Go RX and then 90 degree. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select the vertex at the bottom and at the top and at the sides. And we're going to scale those a little bit so it does sort of like a star. All right, so that's going to become the actual root. So this is the last circle here. We can actually make it big. So this is the root and this is the body, and it's pretty obvious. All right. So now we're going to use one for this and one for the eyes. So I'm actually going to add another one. So Shift A, add another circle. And then this one, we're going to do rotate Y 90 degree. All right. So this is the last circle. I'm going to assign it to this as well as the iris. All right, so just going to select them one by one. It's going to be easier in this case. And this little door at the back, and go Alt and then click on here and choose circle 3. They're way too big in most cases. So we're going to press Alt and then scale them down. And if you hold Shift, it's not so bad. There you go. So that should do the trick right there. This is the door, and yeah, that's perfect. So now we've got all of these in there. Now I did notice, so if you go here and turn off the shapes, I did notice that in the previous video, I moved this bone a little bit, so it's a little offset. So I'm just going to tab into edit mode, go G and then X and then hold shift and just move it out a little bit. And I think that should do the trick. Okay, so that looks about right. All right, perfect. So we're going to put the shapes back on. And now we basically have a cleaner way of selecting the model. It's a lot easier this way. So this was the entire point of having this little extra polish. All right. So in the next lesson, we're actually going to rig the IK with the IK switch of the legs.